I get the distinct privilege of interviewing Derek on his own podcast. And we're going to start at the trace roots of Derek. You all make fun of him for his height, but when he was an even smaller child, that's where we're starting. Derek, what drove you to sports in particular?
So first, sports. Some people start off playing t-ball at a younger age. For me, it was t-ball. I started later than most people. People normally started around my town, like 3 to 4. I started 5, 6. That's really when I started playing sports. Baseball was my first love, but then obviously just figuring out other sports, watching other sports, hearing stuff from your family. I was actually I have an older brother, but I was the first one of my like between my brother and I to really dive into sports. But my dad was a huge reason why. He graduated from Notre Dame, and so obviously just having that background and just being supportive in everything that I've done so far, that's really what got me into sports. However, interesting fact about myself though, before we kind of move on, is my grandfather on my dad's side, who passed away probably about a year before I was born, was the big sports guy on my dad's side. He was part of the military. He was a cook for the military. He was a big part of kind of how I live my life. Just based on like when I talk to my family, he's like the guy that they can compare, myself to in a way. And
So I've heard a lot about your love for sports, but unlike most kids who grow up wanting to be the next starting shortstop of the New York Mets, the New York Yankees, you grew up wanting to be the next broadcaster of a team like the New York Yankees and New York Mets. What drove you to broadcasting at such a young age?
It was second grade. My teacher was from Syracuse, New York. Just growing up, you kind of talk about Syracuse, the Newhouse School, everything like that, and broadcasting. That's what kind of led me into, that broadcasting field. Getting to know not necessarily getting to know Syracuse, but getting to know how Syracuse kind of runs their program with him. Growing up like pretty close to the university, and it really stood out to me is like second grade was the turning point. Everybody talks about being a pro athlete, everything like that. My friends were thinking, let's go. We're going to play at South Carolina. We're going to play at Florida. We're going to play at LSU, college baseball down south. And I was like, you know what? I'm not sure that was my turning point, because I was like, I'm not sure that's realistic for me. I love sports. And that's when I really started to get into the broadcasting aspect of things, just hearing people talk. I think a huge impact was my second grade teacher. Being from Syracuse, just knowing like kind of the realm of broadcasting and everything like that. That's what really got in there. Once I figured out broadcasting is an opportunity to pursue sports and everything like that, then obviously the idols come in: Brent Musburger, Kurt Herbstreit, all the names that you can think of. Brent was a huge part of kind of my life growing up, because he was calling big games. He's one of the greatest, I think, broadcasters. He was calling Notre Dame football games, not like on NBC, but calling games for prime time. My dad, obviously being a Notre Dame fan, that's what really led me to be like, you know what? That's something that I'm passionate about. That's something I want to do. And that's something that I continue to do. Muting the television screen and just calling a game, whether it be a college football game, college basketball game, whatever it is, just making sure that I'm able to just adjust to that mindset of, everybody has a mindset when you're playing, but a broadcasting mindset is looking at the overlooking thing, overlooking theme. And I'm able to concentrate, I feel like, on everything instead of just hitting the ball, just on myself. I want everything to work, not just me.
Now, you mentioned in the past that, well, most people love broadcasting because they get the chance to be the voice of the narrative of the game. Your love for broadcasting may be a little different, a little bit more behind the scenes work, the prep work. Why is that?
I just find like ever since I was a young age, playing, not playing, but, going to University of Rhode Island basketball games, I was always kind of the nerd, looking at the stat sheet, looking at where these guys are from, looking at how to pronounce their last name. Like I would remember weird facts. This guy, number 14 for URI, of Afanye Onikaba, from Nigeria. That's a name that like nobody could pronounce in my entire family, but that was the one guy that I was like, I know this guy. I know not know him like personally, but like know how to pronounce his name. From Nigeria. just kind of like that realm of just finding random facts about each other. Like I can go out there and you'll give me a quiz, and you'll be like, "Who's this guy? Where's this guy from?" And I'll be able to figure out where a certain guy is from that most people might not think of where they went to school. So I have these random facts that come through my head just because I love research. I love researching random facts about random players that nobody else knows, but I find it interesting just learning about people's stories. That's why I do a podcast. I like to hear what other people have to say. It's not all about me, it's about others. And I think that's the beauty of sports, is just it's about a story, and each person has a different story, and you just need to tell it to its fullest.
All of us have our different loves and interests for sports. And I know before you got to college, you were the only one who went to Marist that I knew of that actually had broadcasting experience before college. I know some of us played sports all the way through high school, and that's where our love for sports was. But personally, I had no experience in sports writing or sports broadcasting before I got to college, but you did.
Yeah, high school, I kind of went in. I knew I wanted to do it. I kind of like was shy about it. I didn't want to be the guy like, "Hey, I'm calling games. I'm doing this. I'm doing that." So I like told people close to me. My family obviously knew. I had a teacher for like a small class, just about. I can't remember exactly what the class was, but just helping in literature, reading and writing type of aspects, and we were just reading and different stuff, and I was just not interested in that like at all. I was never a big reader, never a big writer, but I loved talking about sports, just commentating games, just doing whatever I could in the sports industry. So she contacted the athletic director at my high school, I want to say sophomore or junior year, and that's what really actually, hold on, no, freshman year for me in high school. And so I called public address for baseball at the end of my freshman year. And then I was able to call, since I'm from Rhode Island, the Rhode Island Interscholastic League semifinals. They have like their tournament. So I was public address for that game. And then I continued to do public address for baseball. I also did stuff for football, just public address. But during COVID was really the turning point for my career. I want to say that was a huge, like, nobody likes to say COVID was a good thing. But for me, I feel like it was a good thing. Just because there was not fans in the crowd and they still wanted to hear the game or watch the game or whatever like that. So we had a couple live streams. We had one live stream for football. It was kind of interesting because it was a trial thing. We hadn't done football in a while. We never did football on YouTube before. But I called basketball. I did probably, I want to say 5 to 8 basketball games, 2 or 3 women's, and then like a couple men's. But baseball was kind of just, it was more like mainly public address in high school. And I kind of did that for a while. I started to realize like public address is not really my thing, just because like it feels so structured to me. And my favorite part about broadcasting is reacting to things. Like when someone's asking a question, I'll react. Like I feel like I'm really good at reacting to different circumstances, whether than like preparing everything out, making it kind of stern. I'm a huge fan of just ad libbing, because I feel like that's what makes a story or you just that much more real. When it seems like it's written out at certain points, it seems very forced and just not the greatest thing, because it doesn't feel like a story. It feels like you're trying to tell us something instead of like making it a huge like production.
Going back to what you said a little couple minutes ago. So COVID, was COVID really the first time you felt people got to hear your broadcast and you actually got to have both positive and negative critiques?
Yeah, so I did public address. I had critiques from like teachers and like the athletic director and like staff around athletics for my high school, but never really like anything that really would help me, just because I kind of realized like public address is not really for me. You have to have like a certain voice. I don't fit that criteria. My voice is not very like at certain points it's kind of dull, and that's just not me. That's just not my personality to be a public address type of guy hyping people up when nobody really wants to be, at a high school football game. But I would agree, COVID was, I think COVID was the best thing that happened to me. just in terms of like people not going to games, calling games. Like I called basketball games freshman, sophomore year. No, not freshman year, sophomore year of my high school. And like nobody, people would watch the game, but I only got feedback from like other high schools and they said, "Oh, you guys are doing a great job," stuff like that. But once COVID hit, it was like, "Derek, you're the guy. You're that guy." And I was like, at first I was kind of like, I've been calling games sophomore year. Like, why didn't you pay attention? Just kind of having that like ego kind of perspective. But then I sit back and I was like, you know what? Like appreciating me comes a long way. Just because like I've been kind of raised in a way where like we love each other and stuff like that, but it's never like out front and like of like, Derek, you're doing a great job. Like I never really hear that. So like hearing it from other people, it's like it's pretty cool, especially that they know the industry. And like from high school, like people would be like, "Oh, Derek, you're calling a great game, whatever." The amount of prep work I put into that game at that age, probably like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, just like finding rosters, pronunciations, just little facts about little, things. Nobody realized that. So once you got that, hey, you're doing a great job, you're like, this is me. This is the guy. I'm doing this. You can't tell me no. This is what I want to do. I don't care what you have to say. I get love. And on the critique point, like I never really got a lot of critiques. I'm more of a self critique than anybody else. So my critiques were watching my games instead of other people critiquing me, which I found interesting because I'll watch my games multiple times. Like I still go back and watch high school games and be like, yeah, I need to do this better. That was just like, the jitters, those were the kind of the nerves, and it happens. But I feel like I'm my biggest critique, which helps me in the long run because when other people are critiquing me, I'll be like, either you don't know what you're talking about, or I'll be like, you know what? Yeah, I wasn't great, but there's always room to improve.
All right. So then, after high school, clearly you continued to develop your love for broadcasting, and you had a college decision to make. What schools boiled down to your final college decision, and why did you pick to go to Marist?
So I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I would consider myself to be more of an average student. I'm more of like a B plus type of guy. So obviously I applied to Syracuse, Northwestern, Notre Dame, all the big schools that everybody wants to go to in the journalism aspect. But when it came down to it, I didn't get in. I was upset. That was frustrating. But I had two choices. I had Marist or URI. And one thing stood out to me about Marist. When I went to there was like a little sports com thing. Zach Arth said, you can come to Marist and you can learn about sports and games. Once he said you can learn about sports and games, I'm sold. I'm out the door. You can talk all you want. That's what I want to do. With URI, it was like the program was new. It was very fresh. That was something where I was like, I don't really know how new I want to go into a program. Do I regret my decision? No. Would there have been other situations that I might have applied to? Yeah. But at the end of the day, I did not want to stay home. I did not want to be at URI. I would be in the same habit of going to class, having the same high school friends that don't appreciate sports. Like sports is my heart and soul. Like the people that I was with in high school weren't sports guys. Like I am a through and through sports junkie, a sports nerd. I will look up random facts about random teams and I will memorize some of that stuff. Will I remember like what I did in an English paper? No. But will I remember like random sports facts? Yes, it's just how my brain kind of works. But at the end of the day, like I'm glad I made this decision because this sports industry at Marist is completely different than URI or other ones. This is sports com. Other schools are looking at sports media or purely journalism or purely something else. This is a landscape of broadness, which I feel like develops your craft in a completely different mindset. Because freshman year, let's be honest, at Marist, do we have broadcasting opportunities? No, we didn't have broadcasting opportunities right away. So I kind of learned the rope of being versatile. And I feel like that's kind of helped me along the way.
So you first came into Marist, and a little story for Derek's listeners here. He joined the first show he joined, MCTV, Halftime on Hudson, Marist student-run sports show, the only one when he first joined. And Derek's got a little bit of a similar personality to me. He came in and, he's high and mighty. He's got a big ego. We're same up there. And I just remember Derek walked in and he walked in with a ton of confidence. How important did you think walking in with confidence and kind of going out there loose and comfortable helps you on air?
I feel like confidence is one thing that you might not think this, and many people might not think this. My confidence is either way up here or it's in the toilet. So I kind of I think it was week 3 of college. So the first week was kind of like just I was around people that were 6 feet. Like everybody on my entire floor was 6 feet. So I got really insecure. I was not gonna be there. I had long discussions with my housemate who was at the time 6'3", 6'4", about just like, dude, I don't know how I'm gonna make it. I really don't know how I'm gonna make it. Like it was a battle. But then I was like, you know what? If I come out and I'm that guy, and I think this happened before the first debate. I wore a Yankees jacket. It was my dad's for the longest time. I loved it. Like it was, to me, it was like the greatest thing ever. And someone was like, "Wow, you're a big Yankees guy." Oh, it was Connor. It was Connor Kirpat. He's like, "Wow, you're a big Yankees guy with that vest." And I was like, yeah. And I watched stuff from Halftime on the Hudson when I was a senior in high school. Since I knew I was going to Marist, I just wanted to get kind of like a feel for everything. So I kind of followed him and saw like what he did at Marist beforehand. And so I like talked to him a little bit, stuff like that, just kind of getting used to it. But then I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, the first impression to me is the biggest thing. It like first impressions are the biggest thing. What you look like, how you present yourself, what you do. And I was like, at this point, I've been shy. I've been outgoing. Which way do I go? I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be my best self when I'm calling a game, and that's confident. That is being that guy. And I was like, you know what? I'm done being shy. I'm done. I'm changing my personality just a little bit more flashy, more personable. And then I was like, you know what? It's time. It's go time. And I had eyes on the ball. And confidence to me is the biggest thing that whether you're in the industry, whether you're not in the industry, that's the biggest thing you need to have. It's one thing that many people struggle with. But once I get the confidence back, I honestly believe that I'm better than professionals broadcasting a game. I'm better than other people calling the game. I'm better at half of the things that I'm able to do than other people, because it's at the end of the day, it's confidence. And everybody says ego is a bad thing. No, it's not a bad thing. You just got to control it a little bit and you're good. But I think at the end of the day, confidence, I can't say it enough. Confidence is the key to success. It really is at the end of the day.
You spent a lot of time with me with that attitude. That's what I'm hearing. All right. So at Marist, so far, you've been a part of Halftime on the Hudson, Red Fox Report, which is the student-run kind of halftime show for Marist Athletics on ESPN Plus. You've also broadcast games, and you're also a part of Live Take. You work for Firecracker Sports. You got a plethora of stuff on your resume through you're in your 5th college semester right now. Which one of these opportunities do you feel has been the most beneficial for you?
I would personally go with broadcasting, but in particular, I would just say talking to John Rickley, just having a conversation, because like I understand what a broadcast is. Personally, I think I know what a broadcast, like a play-by-play, what their duties are, and can look at a play-by-play broadcaster and be like, yes, this guy's average, this guy's good. I don't like this, I don't like that, more than anybody else at Marist College right now. I truly believe that I can look at a broadcast and dissect the entire thing from front to back better than anybody else at Marist College. I truly believe that. Now, when I talk to him, he knows that I've called games. He knows that I've called games, so he knows my experience with it. So when I'm talking to him, he understands that I'm more intelligent than the guy next to me in terms of broadcasting. So my questions to him would be more centric on the broadcasting aspect than most people, because let's be honest here, Zach, most people at Marist College are not broadcasters. They're sports comm people who are trying to figure out their path. I'm a broadcaster through and through. You cannot tell me I'm not. I am. So when it comes down to that, we get each other from a different level of watching things, seeing things differently than anybody else. So that's the connection that I have that I feel like was beneficial because I called a game last year. I did lacrosse, and like I don't know lacrosse at all. I was just kind of calling the game, miscommunication on me and the color, but it is what it is. It's just the first little things. Then next time I come out this year, I call a hockey game, I call a volleyball game. I can guarantee you all the information that I absorbed from him that made me if I were to give myself a rating, lacrosse game last year, I probably give it a C plus, and that's C plus. This year, hockey is a complex sport. I probably just give it like a B minus just because there's a lot going on. That volleyball game, I can guarantee you it was a B, solid B minimum. But the end of the game for the volleyball game, I think it was probably an A minus. I was hearing from our group chat, and people were saying they had chills from it. I still think about that moment. I was walking to class today and I had chills just thinking about it because that is a call that I just like it feels so good to have that moment, in your back pocket being like, you know what? Today's going to be a good day. Today's going to be a good day. And it was a good day. At the end of the day, it's just about broadcasting. Kind of, I think Brickley's a huge part. I think Riv, everybody here is kind of like helping me along the way of let's be versatile. But at the end of the day, I think Brickley's the biggest influence because of his broadcasting, specifically in broadcasting instead of more versatile.
Now, until last semester, there was really no opportunities to broadcast at Marist until the program became established, the broadcasting program. Now, as someone who got the chance to call many games last semester, one thing you don't realize is how many reps you need as a broadcaster, because each rep you build and get better, and you're talking about the volleyball game. We called 10 baseball games last year, and one of them was close. And you have to cherish the calls that are close because those are the ones that look great on your resume, like you're talking about. We had the one baseball game where it's bases loaded, 2 outs. That's a broadcaster's dream. Bases loaded, 2 outs, 1 run game in the last inning because you can get excited and it sounds authentic. But the reps and the ability to call close games, how important are those for you as you try to build up into your career?
I would say close games are helpful. But I feel like close games are like with my experience level, I feel like close games are kind of my comfort level. I feel like the games that are not close, trying to find stories, trying to, fill time when the game's not great is the hardest part. At the end of the day, reps to me is the biggest thing. I can't say it enough. Reps are the biggest thing. That's why when you make decisions, do you go with reps or do you go with being more versatile? That's it. That's one of my decisions that coming up I'll have to make. What is more important to me? Reps, connections, or being versatile? Personally, I don't know where to go at that point. Because I think reps are so important to the fact of you call a game and you learn from it. I watch almost every game that I call. That's just me. And I dissect what I did right, what I did wrong. You come back and you learn from that, and you do it again. Reps are just you cannot manipulate reps in this business and sports communication or sports media or just the sports world in general. When you do things multiple times, you get better at it. You like for me from one game to the next. Stories, telling a story was the biggest thing this year when broadcasting that I wanted to improve on. And I think I did. I think I've done a great job personally on improving that because I felt like I was just calling the game. I didn't have like a story to the broadcast. I think I've improved in that aspect. Calling the game, the reactionary stuff, that's in my back pocket. And I'll tell you right now, if I could have an open, if I could have a close, if I could, going to break and be just average at all those categories and be able to tell a story, I think I would be a professional broadcaster with a network because of my when it's a game, when it's just that game time, that's when I excel. The other things I got to work on. I know I got to work on that. And that's something that I like, but at the end of the day, it reps. Reps are the biggest thing. Close games are nice to have, but I don't think it's the end of the day. I think having a variety too is helpful because like I said, having a blowout, you got to figure out what you want to do. But the biggest thing, reps. I can't say enough. Reps are the biggest thing at the end of the day, whether it be baseball, whether it be soccer, whatever it is, call everything. Call all different sports at the end of the day, because a rep is a rep. It doesn't matter what it is. It just means if you're calling a game that you're not familiar with, you just have to spend more prep time. And I love prep time. So at the end of the day, you just got to focus on yourself. You got to have tunnel vision. You can't worry about other people, and you just gotta have reps at the end of the day, because that's what resume people, that's what workers want to see. They want to see highlights. They want to see everything. And if you call 5 games, let's just say, and you're filling out a reel, and they say they want it 10 minutes, they're gonna see one game like for 5 minutes. That's not what they want to see. They want to see, they want to see different stuff. They don't want to see the same game multiple times. That's just not something that they like, period.
Agreed. And that's why we come back to the decision of, you want to have a resume that's diverse, or do you want to have reps? And we have this conversation all the time too, because it is interesting. Because last semester, what I got to call 10 games max. And so my resume, if I wanted to be a broadcaster, like you said, does not have a lot of diversity. Now, I don't know if I want to be a broadcaster. Plus, we talked about this too, when you have 10 games in or whatever, you can be good, but until you get 100, 150 games in, you're not going to sound great. You need more and more reps, like you're talking about. And the hard part of it is the hiring world is so subjective. One person could prefer you have 200 games under your belt and they like you better, while somebody else could love that you have the diversity of being in front and behind of the camera. So it's hard to decide which route to go, because everyone has their own opinion. But you have other routes on your resume too. You do not just have broadcasting. You have live take, where it's a little bit of broadcasting, but you're the head of content. You have MCTV, where you work behind the scenes a lot of the time, as well as Red Fox Report. If you had to go behind the scenes, can you enjoy behind the scenes?
I think I can kind of enjoy it. I think I'd just be jealous the entire time. Kind of on the on camera thing. And we talked about it in the car one time, and I said, this might sound weird. I said the only thing behind the scenes that I would thoroughly enjoy would be being a spotter. Yes, being a spotter for a football game, because you're involved in the broadcast. Like if you're the camera operator, you're not really involved. You're just kind of there. If you're part of the floor manager for a show, you're there, but you're not really there in the aspect. Spotter to me is where you're focused, you're locked in. You don't have to do the prep work that a broadcaster has to do. You just need to have good eyes and stuff like that. At the end of the day, that's probably the only possible option that I would be happy, like 100% happy with. But being a production assistant, I would not mind that. I'm really starting to enjoy just editing, whether it be like a hype video, whether it be a highlight, something like that. Like that's cool to me. But at the end of the day, like I want to be the voice. Like I feel like my voice, this sounds cocky, this sounds arrogant, that you can say all you want about it. But I think my voice is, you hear it and you know it's me. You can hear the voice 10 miles away and you know it's me, because my voice is so much different than anybody else's, because you don't expect the voice coming out of my mouth from me compared to a normal person, because let's be honest, it all comes back to it. Like, would you expect a guy who looks probably like they're 16, 14, 16 years old to have this type of voice? You don't. At the end of the day, you just don't. That's what makes me feel like I separate myself over other people, just based on the fact of like, my voice is what it is. I love it. I can hear myself talk 24/7, and I think it's the funniest thing ever. I can watch an entire broadcast. Most people would watch their broadcast and be like, I don't like the sound of my voice. At the end of the day, and I think it sounds just unique in its own way. Like I personally, this might be a hot take, but at the end of the day, I feel like my voice is a broadcaster's voice, whether I'm doing a podcast, whether I'm just speaking to you in general. It just has that aspect to it where if I'm having a normal conversation, like it has that kind of, realm around it, because you can hear the inflection, the clarity, kind of everything around in my voice. And at the end of the day, it's all, I can't say it enough. It's just being confident in yourself. And that's exactly how I grew up. It's the biggest thing to me, and I love it. I love this industry. I think sports broadcasting, whatever it is, it's great. On camera is 10 times better, but at the end of the day, you got to find what you like and what you don't like, and I'd be okay with it, but I would still be jealous, and I don't think I could live with myself going down the road, let's just say 15 years down the road, and be like, you really did a great job. Because my dream when I was a little kid was to be a broadcaster, and my biggest regret would be letting that little kid down at the end of the day.
I like the little ego confidence you talk about all the time because I've been felt the same way. When you're broadcasting, you have to feel like you're the best one out there. You're not going to make it anywhere in every industry is competitive, so it's overblown when people talk about how competitive sports industry is. You're not going to make it in any industry if you don't think you're the best at what you do, or you have the confidence that you can be the best at what you do. We talked about, we didn't have a lot of broadcast experience last year. Both of us thought we were the best, and that was the only way we were going to get through games at a high level, because once you think you're the best, you practice hard, you study hard, unless you let it get too far into your head and then it affects your work. But if you think you're the best and you put the work in, that's how you get to the mountaintop. But last couple of questions for you here. You talk about research, which is another career you could have too, because research is heavy. That's another behind the scenes job you could have. This has been a balance game for people who come out of Marist, and you've heard all about this from your friends who are a couple years older than you. You can have two options in many places. You could probably come out of Marist and start pretty quickly at a high level company, a big time company, working behind the scenes. You're one of the few people who would prefer to go work for a local channel somewhere and try to build up, even if it takes 10, 20 years, or maybe doesn't happen at all to get to the mountaintop. You'd prefer to try to be on camera before you'd go behind the scenes at a bigger company.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I've joked about it my entire life. I go to Idaho, I go to Montana. I don't really care. I've kind of learned that at this certain point in time, like play by play is what I want to do. Hosting, it's cool and all. It's great. I love to do it too, but play by play is what I want to do. Local TV is cool. I like that. I don't mind that idea as being a reporter. But at the end of the day, play by play is what I strictly would be looking for out of college. So if it's Broncos sports, if it's Wyoming sports, if it's Boston College sports, if it's URI sports, if it's Marist, I don't really care at this point. Would I prefer my main sports would be baseball, basketball, football, but anything else at the point, it's all about experience. I need to be a play-by-play guy. That's my goal. And will I work with a network? Yes, I'm going to work with a network when I'm 35 years old. You will hear this voice calling a basketball game, a football game. When I'm at age 35, you can book it right now. That is the grind that I'm going to be putting in for, however long it takes.
Derek, that's all I got for you. That's the kind of content you get on Derek's discussion. And I will say it, you've always been cocky, but I think I've rubbed off on you a little bit, and I like it. I like the spunk you got, bro. That's why we're friends. I like that spunk, calling your shot like that. And I hope you make it there. I hope you make it there. It's a grind, man. It's a grind at every job. Every step you take up in the industry, it gets smaller and smaller. So you really got to put in the work. And like you said, you're not afraid of failure. I'm not afraid of failure. You're going to fail. You can't be perfect in this industry. You got any closing thoughts for us? It's your podcast. You close us out.
Yeah, so baseball is failure. I play baseball, so I'm not afraid to fail. My famous Derek Jeter quote: "Failure is part of life." It is. It is. It is. If you're going to, failure is part of success at the end of the day.